There's this one control that nobody really thinks about that's actually the key to getting a clean and loud mix. You'll definitely be making better mixes and masters after this video.
Wasting my time with you, but I like it too.
So let's use the kick and bass from this track as an example. So I'm using this compressor to sidechain the bass to the kick, and the X factor that's gonna help us get a clean mix is actually the look ahead time. But you can see in this plugin, it's actually hidden, it's grayed out. You gotta go down to this little section and toggle it on. It's such a simple control. I wanna show you how you can use it to make really clean mixes, and then at the end, I'll tell you how you can use it to get the best masters you've ever made. On a technical level, what does look ahead time mean and why is it important? The audio signal of the bass is coming into this compressor, and then it runs through the processing of the compressor, and then it comes out the other side. And this process happens really fast. You can't hear the delay at all, but it actually does take a few milliseconds for all of this to work. What look ahead time will do is delay the audio of my entire project just so this plugin can get an advanced look at what's gonna happen in the future. So it's gonna see the audio coming before it actually plays. And I can show you really clearly how this is affecting the mix. So I have this compressor on the fastest sidechain settings, but I do have the look ahead turned off. So let me bounce this to audio so you can see what's happening. Let's just zoom in on one of the kicks. So you'll see the bass at the top and the kick at the bottom. So look where the initial transient of the kick is happening, and then look above it at the bass. The compressor just totally didn't pick up that initial transient from the bass, so now it's layered on top of the initial transient of the kick. Here's what that transient sounds like. So there's a big initial burst of energy, a pop, every time the bass and kick are playing at the same time. And this problem is only gonna get worse as you add in more synth layers that are also being sidechained to the kick, and then you're gonna get a big spike at the beginning of every kick. It's gonna make it really hard to get a loud and clean master. All we gotta do is go back to the sidechain compression on the bass and turn the look ahead time on, and I'm gonna crank it up to 20 milliseconds so you can see what's happening. So let's bounce this to audio now. And now when I zoom in, you'll see at the beginning of every kick hit, there's nothing happening on the bass track. It's totally empty. And that's because the compressor anticipated the kick coming and then ducked the audio out of the way early, so there's no transient at all. And if you want to understand the rest of these compressor controls so you can make better mixes, I'm actually giving you 2 free lessons from my mixing course. If you go to bigzcourses.com and hit try for free, you'll find a lesson that's all about compression. It only takes like 10 seconds to create a free account. But this video is all about look ahead time, and where look ahead time really helps is mastering. All that mastering really is taking your audio and reducing the peaks so you can turn up the level of your whole track. It's just one big trade-off between how many peaks you want to preserve versus how loud you want your master to be. So let's start with the drums and then we'll do the full track. So some of these peaks are going to make it hard to get a loud master because we're only going to be able to turn up the track so much. So I'm going to add this limiter on the drum bus, and I'm going to use these settings to catch those transients and turn them down. But if we turn the look ahead time up, it's gonna do a better job of anticipating those transients and actually catching them. So we could go with a dynamic master and just reduce the transients a little bit, or we could crank it up to create more headroom. So our drums just went from looking like this to this. We sacrificed some transients to get more headroom so we can turn everything up later. Let me show you a visual of what look ahead time is actually doing on these drums. So in the top audio file, there's no look ahead time, and when a transient hit, the limiter wasn't ready for it, but it still had to put a hard ceiling on the volume, which is why you see this flat shelf after the transient. The audio signal has basically been turned into a square wave, and what happens when you turn an audio signal into a square wave is distortion. So not having enough of a look ahead time will actually add digital distortion to your masters. So then the bottom audio file had the look ahead time on the limiter, so the limiter was able to see the peak coming in advance and turn it down in a more musical way. That's why I don't love using hard clippers, because it's really easy to get that square wave effect and add digital distortion. But let's keep going. Now we can reduce some peaks from the bass bus. And now let's add in the vocals and synths and put this at the beginning of the master so we can reduce some transients from the entire track.
Wasting my time with you, but I like it too. I'm wasting away, it's true, but I like wasting time with you.
All of those limiters I've been using so far, I've really been using as clippers to make a harder cutoff for those transients. But now at the end of the master chain, we can actually use the limiter for what it's made for, which is master limiting. So let's just pick one of the presets. I'll go with this EDM punchy one. And I'm gonna make sure the look ahead time is lower this time, but not too low where it's introducing that distortion.
Wasting my time with you, but I like it too.
And you can actually see the master limiter isn't having to work that hard, and we're at like -9 LUFS, which is pretty crazy. And that's gonna allow us to make an even louder master if we want to, so I can really crank this up.
I'm wasting away, it's true, but I like wasting time with you.
So now we have a really loud but clear master, and that's all thanks to look ahead time. If you want to learn how to mix and master tracks that sound like your favorite artists, then try my mixing course for free at bigzcourses.com. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.